I hope I don't forget to say something. But for instance, talking about October 7th, which isn't even like the news of today, this was the news of yesterday slash October 7th. At first, there were estimates that 3,000 uh, Palestinians, mostly Hamas, but also civilians, broke through the fence between Gaza and Israel, and that's when the carnage happened. But now a report just came out saying it was actually closer to 6,000. So it was like one of the most major intelligence and security failures that Israel has experienced in its history. And I think it was actually it's somehow comparable to the Yom Kippur War, or the October War, which occurred 50 years before in 1973. But in that case, the bulk of the loss of life on that day and that war was soldiers, whereas this time it was civilians, including 250 civilians, well, not just civilians, sorry, people kidnapped, and not just Israelis, but even foreign workers, even Israeli, like a Bedouin, and one of the Bedouins was just freed, actually, or rescued by Israeli soldiers last week, which would have been like a great day to do a report, but instead we've just been the country was walloped with two really bad reports on the heels of that. There was last week they found the bodies of 6 hostages, and then they rescued a hostage, and then somehow, like during that operation or around the same time, they were just so close to other hostages, and apparently on their way, according to the reports and the comments coming out, or the coming out now from the Israeli, like the defense forces, and they're doing their investigation. They said that the 6 hostages were killed by Hamas. Like, I don't want to jump into rumors and different media that says sources said blah 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 how it happened. I know if you're listening to like the like fanatic news out there, then you probably have like the worst case scenario, and I don't want to say that because nobody released an official report as to how exactly they died, except that there were, I mean, where they were shot or whatever, but bullets, they were shot, and the army says they were shot by Hamas like a day or two. Was it a day or two before they were going to be found? So the reports started coming out last night around 11 o'clock at night, a little bit after 11 o'clock at night. And now, mind you, today's September 1st, and September 1st is one of the things on the Israeli calendar, not the Jewish calendar, because somehow the school calendar goes according to the regular Western calendar, but it doesn't go according to the holidays, which goes according to the Jewish calendar. So without fail, school will begin on September 1st every year and end on June 30th, of course, barring strikes, viruses, pandemics, and wars. So school was supposed to start today. Now, usually, first day of school is usually the big story on September 1st. Like, it's the story for the how many kids are going to school. Of course, it would have been a story this year to say how many displaced kids are going to school and where they're going to school. Like, there's about 20,000 residents that don't live in their homes in northern Israel. And there's also, tens of thousands from southern Israel who still haven't moved back to their homes because those are the kibbutzim that were destroyed in the October 7th attack. So I was expecting like all those numbers to come in, but instead we went to bed with the news that the army has found a number of bodies of hostages, and they're being extricated back into Israel and will be identified. and more news will follow. And it also added, don't engage in rumors, right? And whatever you hear, whatever's running wild, like apparently names were already out there on social media. I don't know if that turned out to be correct or not. I didn't actually run into any of those rumors, but I did run into one thing that was, I saw somebody, some big influencer who posted something about this, big tragedy involving hostages, and then it was removed because it actually came out well before the army even said anything officially. So it's really, there's somebody, Dan Bongino says it's better to be right than to be first. So I think in this case, that is very important. But forget right and first, because right now you're looking at near revolution. I mean, I don't know if you can see what's happening here, but there are tens of thousands of protesters in Israel. Now, why are they protesting? You would think, like, I mean, well, there's so much news. By the way, in the midst of this, so we're getting the news. So let me go back. 11:30 at night, horrible news. I'm sure most of the country didn't sleep. Totally overshadowed first day of school. It was like, first day of school, yeah, kids go to school. Like shock, shell shock. The kids off to school. Of course, there was still a strike, and it was the two older grades of the last two high school years, 11th, 12th grade. Other than that, kids went back to school. Have no idea where or what the numbers are, or if the displaced kids got back to school. I'm sorry that this report's only about Israel. I'm sure there are many kids in Gaza who aren't even alive to go to school right now, but we are talking about what's happening here because this is an extremely big day, I think, and it's going to be significant when you look back on this date, September 1st, because what's happening right now is a huge protest, because when we woke up in the morning, it wasn't so much about what's happening in school, but the names of the hostages whose bodies were found were beginning to be released. And so if you're listening from America, most Americans know the name Hersh Goldberg Polin. He was an American Israeli, and a young guy actually lived in this neighborhood. His family lives somewhere. I mean, I don't know where exactly, but we have so many mutual friends. And I even saw the parents. I met them once just on walking on down the street over here. And so I think most Americans have known and heard of him. And then there were, they slowly released the names of the other hostages. But I remember waking up, the first thing I did was, okay, like check the news. And I'm like focusing my eyes and I'm like, did I just read? And also because it was in Hebrew, I was like, maybe I need glasses. No way. Because Hersh is one of the few hostages that Hamas released a sign of life of him a couple months ago. And he, Hersh lost his arm on the October 7th attacks. He was in a bomb shelter, a temporary, one of those bomb shelters on the side of the road. He was in one, trying to hide, with a bunch of other young people, trying to get away, hide themselves. But Hamas must have known about the bomb shelters, and they were attacking all of them. And these bomb shelters became death traps. So they're meant to protect from rockets that are incoming, but they're not going to protect from grenades that are thrown inside. And that is what happened. And so a grenade that was thrown inside killed his friend, and it took off his arm. And a couple weeks ago, they found like a video that hadn't been released before. I think the army found it in Gaza of Hersh and some other guys from that bomb shelter being loaded into the back of a truck and taken into Gaza. And so you see definitively that he lost part of his arm. And so there was nobody knew whether or not he could be alive. But then Hamas released a video of him, saying whatever script they wanted him to say. And so, he made it. He was alive. So that was extremely unexpected. Now, the other five, I have their names, and I'll tell you in the names. And then there was another 6 last week. Now, in the midst of this, you're still digesting this news, getting the kids ready to go to school, everybody running around. Do you do the first day of school picture and all this, and it's crazy, and then suddenly you're seeing, like, am I reading that right? Is there really a terror attack going on right now? A shooting? I think it was in the southern West Bank, and 3 police officers were killed. It was a shooting at a car, 3 police inside. All 3 of them were killed. At first, it was like 2 wounded, serious condition, and then it was like 3 in serious condition, then 2 dead, then 3 dead. And I was like, I can't believe it. So that's happening. Meanwhile, 10 Israeli soldiers have been killed in the last week, and there's the 6. It's the headlines right now. This is the 8 o'clock news. It's a little bit before. Eden Yerushalmi, Carmel Gat. The funerals have already begun because the body's are already back. They're identified. The autopsies are done. This is one of the funerals. That's Eden Yerushalmi. So all day long was the news. Now, listen, I know since in my last video that I posted, not live, but it's another video, and it was about a land issue for a Palestinian family. And it definitely attracted like it went in like this, I don't know what the word is, this loop of like this, free Palestine and, and anti-Israel and, go to hell and all this stuff. And I was like, whoa, what's happening here? When I saw all the comments, I was like, a story is a story. You can, you can hear these people, you can hear their side and feel bad for them and everything. But then I see comments saying, like on my other videos where I said we're still waiting for the Iranian attack, somebody wrote, I hope you don't wait too long. And I'm like, well, gee, thanks. That's brilliant. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, let's all try to understand the news and figure out what's happening. No, let's just filter our lives through hatred. It's brilliant. So anyway, so there's a lot of stuff like that going on. And I'm just like, what can we just like, here's the news, and there's people suffering here and there's people suffering there. So I don't know. Absolutely ridiculous reactions. But right now we're looking at what's happening here. So you're going to have funerals all day. And now you have what I was talking about, Israel erupting into protest. Tens of thousands of people protesting right now. Tomorrow, they have called a strike. So no sooner, for instance, has school started, then there will be a strike tomorrow. There will be condensed learning, like it'll go from 8:15 to 11:45 rather than 8:15 to 2:30 or whatever it's supposed to be. So that's one thing. There's some municipalities are closing down. The airport's closing down. Businesses have decided to close down. Like malls are not going to open tomorrow. And why is this? Like, what is the protest? The protest, the majority of the people here, I don't know if it's the majority of the country, are calling for a deal right now. Most of the people, all of the things that I've heard today, people are saying that if there was a deal, these hostages would have been out, they wouldn't have been killed. Now, why is there opposition to a deal? Like from the government in particular, the Israeli government opposes a hostage deal, because they don't want to give up the Philadelphia corridor, which is the border basically between Egypt and Gaza. And so now that the military's entrenched in southern Gaza, they don't want to give it up. What does Hamas want in a deal? Israel, get out of Gaza, and then we'll make a deal. But Israel's like, no, we're not going to get out of Gaza. We're going to stay in Gaza, and we're going to, secure it. And they also said, and there's Hirsch from Jerusalem. His parents have been spokesmen for this movement. They just appeared at the Democratic National Convention, and if you look on YouTube for a clip from that, it was extremely moving to see the reaction even from the crowd, and how Rachel, the mom, who has been such an eloquent and amazing spokesman, just broke down in tears. Alex Lubnov, 32 years old. Did she give birth? Is she the one that gave birth while he was? This is Almog Sarusi, 27 years old. I think they were all kidnapped from the party, the festival in the South that was happening on October 7th. And this is Ori Danino, 25 years old, from Jerusalem. So, wow, where was I? Where was I, Tony? Tony, where was I? You don't know? We're like too much overload. It's overload today. If you want to comment and let me know where I was, if you remember. I don't remember. Why are they not giving up the Philadelphia corridor? I just remembered because I just saw this post from Gershon Baskin. Oh, wow. Here, you guys listen. I'm looking for my notes. Oh, my gosh. Where's my notes from today? Listen to a few interviews. And so I heard, let's talk about this Philadelphia corridor, because somehow it's become the thing in the news, in politics, I guess, in the government and in the news, that is like the government saying that the victory turns on the Philadelphia corridor. Who controls the Philadelphia corridor, which is this basically the border, the strip between Gaza and Egypt, and that's what the government is for. And that's why if they leave, they say that if Israel pulls out its army, then they will lose, and October 7th will happen again, and it'll even be worse. And plus the hostages, somebody said, will be probably smuggled to Iran, and then all bets are off. And then there's never an end to the war, because you're not negotiating with Iran. You're dealing with geographically Hamas and Gaza, not Iran. And once they get the hostages, then forget a deal. They're gone forever. But then the people who are saying, no, get who the heck cares about the Philadelphia corridor, get out, get the hostages out. That's more important. And people who even say that Israel has a moral obligation to save its citizens. And if that means to get its military out, then they should do that. So that is the debate that's going back and forth. But the Hostage Family Forum, that has become a movement, and it's become a source of protesting every week, is saying a deal now, make a deal now. On the other hand, people are saying that it's Hamas that is not making the deal, that it's Hamas that is constantly rejecting. And yeah, they rejected the last one, the most recent one, but there was one in May. I just heard somebody speak today. He's a former negotiator. He's the one who negotiated the Gilad Shalit deal. He was an Israeli soldier kidnapped by Hamas. He was in Gaza for 5 years, and he negotiated his release, but for 1,000 prisoners. But he's the one who said that he said that the Philadelphia corridor issue is a myth. He said this is not. So I'm reading my notes from an interview with him today. And he also said that Hamas is an ideology that is not going to be defeated. And he said that let me get the money quote, where he basically said, we need to go to elections. We need to have a national committee of investigation for who and what led us to October 7th, and call people to responsibility for what happened. He also said that the Hamas leader right now, because people are talking about maybe, and if we get Yahya Sinwar, who is the head of Hamas in Gaza, If we get him, then we win. And he's like, Sinwar knows he's not making it out of Gaza alive. Like, he knows he's going to be killed, and he's okay with that. So he's going to take as many Israelis with him as he can. And so if there is not a deal, he only sees more death. Now, this also, by the way, brings the number of hostages. Thanks, Ohan, by the way, and good to see you here. There were 100 and I think 107, I believe, yesterday. It's going fast in the last couple of days because, we had the 6 that they found the bodies. They had, the one rescued who was Farhan Al-Qadi. He is a 52-year-old Bedouin. That, was just an amazing story. But there was such euphoria the day that he was rescued. It was last week, right? Or over the weekend. I don't even remember what day. The days are all mushed together. It was while we were here. So since Wednesday, Thursday, I'm not sure what day. First 5, 6 bodies found. Then he's rescued. Euphoria. And then this. And this has literally just blown it up. So the protests that started at the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, today at 4:00 during their cabinet meetings. There were protesters out there in Jerusalem, and now all the protesters are gathering in Tel Aviv. And we don't know how many, but just from the looks of it, and compared to the protests that we saw where they were saying 120,000 back when they were protesting the proposed judicial reform, this looks comparable to those protests. What else? Oh, thank you, Steve. I don't know. I'm just overwhelmed. I mean, if you feel like there's something I missed, let me know. I mean, I'm sure as soon as I hit end stream, I will think of a million things I missed, because today was a day of a million things in the news. I'm going to give you an interesting observation that I did have yesterday. This is outside of the news. But when my daughter's sitting right here, mocking me, just so you know, she's imitating what I'm doing. So it's might get a little distracted. Hold on, I'm trying to focus, not look at her. Okay, so when this news came out last night, and unfortunately we hadn't already gone to bed, so we heard, there might be, not the GPO, the IDF said, there's hostages. A number of hostages have been located, bodies of hostages. Report will come after. So, okay. So then I see a message from the Prime Minister's office. And I'm thinking it must be related to this. Let me get it. I'm going to tell you what it was, because it's better than me trying to quote it. And I was like, let me open it and read it. This came in at 11:56 after we knew well enough what was happening, and it wasn't good news. This is from the Prime Minister's office. Reports about a general ceasefire in order to administer polio vaccines in Gaza are false. Israel will allow a humanitarian corridor only through which vaccination personnel may pass. Designated safe areas will also be established for administering the vaccines during certain hours. Israel views with importance the prevention of a polio outbreak in the Gaza Strip, including for the purpose of preventing the spread of diseases in the region. I'm like, tone deaf? I mean, you're talking about hostages, and you know that all of these families think that you should have made a deal. And you're saying by no means did we agree to a ceasefire. God forbid we agree to a ceasefire, because a ceasefire is what the left wants. And we and our government, the government coalition would never agree to a ceasefire. And that's the position of this particularly right-wing government, is to not agree to a ceasefire. So they had to clarify that there will be the allowance of the polio vaccine to go in and to inoculate these children, but it's not really a ceasefire. So don't worry, it's just a corridor, which, by the way, humanitarian corridors, remember the World Aid Kitchen or the World Kitchen, whatever the name of, the name of that organization, WK something, or I don't remember, where several of them were killed in humanitarian vehicles by accident or because they thought they were terrorists. And humanitarian zones have been dangerous. So in any case, you're not saying much with that. However, what you are saying is that, God forbid, we do a ceasefire, even if it's for this. But you shouldn't have said that when you were talking about your army is saying we just pulled out bodies. And you're saying, oh, but no ceasefire, nothing to do with it. So anyway, so that threw me a bit off. Then there was the case of the influencer who put something in bold and said how something, I don't remember the exact thing. I wish I screenshotted it, because when I went back, then the IDF puts out a statement. The Israel Defense Forces puts out a statement and says, don't engage in rumors. Don't say anything. Just, this is the news. This is all we're telling you right now. And don't try to say anything else. And I went back to look for this guy and what he said. And you know what? It was gone. He deleted it. So I was like, nice. Anyway, completely unethical. And this is the problem with influencers trying to be reporters, because they have no idea what is actual journalistic integrity. They just can do whatever they want, especially when they're actually just propaganda machines for one side or the other. Anyway, enough on that soapbox. And by the way, to all the haters out there who are like rejoicing now because Israelis died, because Israelis should die, because Gazans died, and blah, blah, blah. A friend of mine who's Muslim actually was messaging me today, and she's like, is this true? Is this true? Because Hirsch, just not Hirsch. She's been following the parents of this hostage. I mean, we're both American, so I think for the Americans here, it's easy for us. You can't relate to 250. You can't know 250, but I think a lot of the Anglos definitely we know Naama Levy is another Israeli American who is a hostage now. And then there was Hirsch, of course. And she messaged me and she's like, tell me it's not true about Hirsch and tell me what happened. And so I think that the people who are living outside the country who hate one side or the other don't understand that we in the country are actually hoping for the best for each other. And we love each other, and most people can get along with the other. So while the haters outside hate and don't even understand what life is like on the ground, we're all connected. And we have a different reality than the protesters outside. By the way, there's sirens right now. This is in the north, so could be incoming rockets. It was a very quiet day until late afternoon, and then suddenly Hezbollah was like, oh, I guess we've been too quiet. Let's jump in now. This is Hirsch's mom, Rachel. They've just been amazing. 201 days. This was the video they released from Hamas. I love you. I miss you, he says to his family. I think about you every day. Be strong. And fight until we all get out. All of us hostages get out. See this? They've met with the Pope, the President of the US. They've been at the UN, the DNC. Look at this. They're saying bring them home. She started, Rachel started this by putting the number of the days that they're in. Oh, what did I do? Oh my God. Did I just mess that up? Tony's like, I wash my hands of this. I don't know what I did either. I'm so sorry, guys. Okay. What else is there to say? There's not much to say. It's a very tough day. It feels like a day of mourning for the whole nation. I think this is the straw that broke the camel back. I think we're going to look back to this day. This is like, oh, yeah, oh my God, a whole other aspect. I'm not going to go into details. The other thing to keep an eye on is that while everybody's looking at Gaza and everybody's looking at the north with Hezbollah, there is another front, and it's huge right now, and it's in the West Bank. It's in the northern West Bank. It's maybe not just, but it's widening. It was just in Jenin, and now it's expanded to also Tulkarem and other Palestinian cities. And the Israeli army has been there for about a week, over a week now. I think it's been since we were in Armenia. So they've been there for over a week, and it's the scenes I see. Look, there's what the army is saying, and then they're like when they say we killed 20 terrorists, but then when you hear the Palestinian news, they don't say that it was and civilians, and or some of them are civilians, and it's not all terrorists. And I saw like in a refugee camp in Jenin that they were told to evacuate. So it's like scenes from Gaza being repeated now in Jenin. Now, all of this is, many people believe this is just going to inflame, maybe they were already, the Palestinians in the West Bank to and incite them to commit more terror attacks. And so keep an eye on the West Bank, because the army is in there also, because Hamas has a huge influence in the West Bank, and that's why there hasn't been elections in the West Bank for it's over 15 years now, I think, because Hamas will probably win the elections there. So they have a strong influence. And so whether, the army, I don't have the details on it. Were they acting according to intelligence, like defensive, preemptive, whatever, or whether there was something like that was imminent and they went in, but they've been there. There are elite units in there, and like bulldozing entire streets. And it just is, it's crazy to just watch. I mean, if you look at the Arabic speaking media, not just Palestinian, but all Arabic speaking media, you get one story of the hardships and the displacement and stuff like that. And then if you look at the Israeli side, it's like, oh, but there was almost this attack, or this attack was foiled. And so there's just two completely different narratives going on, but there is definitely a lot of danger. So that's just a third front to just be aware of. I mean, forget right now Iran and the Houthis. Like, nobody's even thinking about their imminent attacks at the moment. Those are a little bit off the charts for, like it's off the radar for now while everybody looks at these. So I knew I was going to forget something, and I just remembered I forgot that, and I probably will remember if I forgot something else. But the natives here are getting restless and want to watch a show and go to bed. So we have to go shut this off and go back to normal life for a little while. No, is this normal? Hard to tell if this is the norm or if the routine that you want to have is the norm. I don't know. But in any case, I will end this now. And thank you for tuning in on this crazy day. And just keep an eye, because I think this could be the straw that broke the camel's back of the Israeli public, actually, and nothing to do with the war. Like, it's crazy. So we'll see what happens. And yeah, here they come. All right, I better get out while I have the chance. Yeah, and day one of school. Day one, while it lasted, Emily. While it lasted, day one of school, because tomorrow's a half day. Striking. Yeah. I'm ending soon. Wow, they're really going at it. All right. Here's the other front of the war. I'm going to go.